Hi, Emma here at Emma's Antenatal. I'm reading out birth stories this week, and this is another one from the website Tell Me About a Good Birth Story. This is Freya's birth at home. I come from a family where my mum, her sister, my granny have all told me some horror stories about their difficult births and some of the long-term problems they suffered as a result. This literally petrified me into telling my midwife at my booking visit that I'd be having an elective C-section. I would have preferred a nice, straightforward delivery, but I had instilled in me that this was unlikely to happen, and I really didn't want long-term problems plaguing me for the rest of my life. I then started reading birth stories and I got a little addicted. I ventured into home birth stories and became hooked. There is one maternity hospital within a 70-mile radius where I live, no midwife units and no specialist home birth team. Long story short, it was inspected a few years ago and deemed unfit for purpose, and they're building a new one now. Needless to say, this put me off giving birth there. It's also a 20-minute drive for me in good traffic. At around 24 weeks, I mentioned home birth to my community midwife. She seemed all for it. She takes part of the on-call home birth rota in my area, but she couldn't think of a single first-time mum that had delivered at home whose story she could share with me. My pregnancy was pretty straightforward, aside from lots of sickness until around 20 weeks. I had some growth scans, as they kept measuring my bump large, but scans said baby was average. Around 36 weeks, my midwife delivered my home birth pack. I ordered my birthing pool and collected 1 dose of morphine should I want it during labour. Gas and air was delivered a week later. A team of 9 community midwives took turns being on call for my home birth from 38 weeks. And I had to fight for this, as they say 39 is the usual, unless a mother has a history of delivering early. At 39 plus 3, I requested a sweep at my 40-week appointment. To everyone's surprise, I was 3 to 4 centimetres and cervix completely thinned out. I had been having on and off Braxton Hicks for weeks and weeks, and I had them during my sweep. My midwife said she couldn't believe I was already in labour. I left the doctor's surgery a little dazed and had lots of cramping. I started to think, this is it. I went home and bounced and bounced. I went for a walk. Cramps were still there. Husband talked about preparing the birth pool, but I told him not to bother, as I had a hunch my cramps would disappear if I lay down and watched TV. And they did. Went to sleep. Woke up the next morning disappointed that I hadn't gone into labour that night. I went to the last of my beauty appointments I had booked ahead of my due date. I got my nails and eyebrows done, and then I made dinner. At 6:30, whilst sat at the dinner table, having just finished my meal, I had an almighty, unmistakable, first real contraction. Then another a few minutes later. I got excited. Within 15 minutes, I had the TENS machine on and was pacing the living room. My husband was getting excited and wanted to fill the pool and call the midwife on call. I told him, let's give it 1.5 hours first and just see if they fizzle out. But 1 hour later, I told him to call the hospital and let the midwife on call know that I was in labour. The midwife called back and wanted to speak to me. A wonderful, familiar voice spoke reassuringly down the phone to me. It was my midwife, the one who had looked after me through all my pregnancy and saw me the day before just for my sweep. How lucky was I? I made a nest on the living room floor and leant over my birth ball with my hypnobirthing soundtrack on repeat and my TENS machine cranked up. My husband was filling the pool and sorting out the mood lighting. The midwife arrived just after 8 p.m. I'd been in labour just over 1.5 hours now. She turned up with the second midwife. I was on all fours, pants down, wearing only a vest on the living room floor. My midwife asked to examine me, which was fine, as I wanted to know, and I had said it was okay and I said I was okay with this on my birth plan. I was 8 centimetres. I couldn't believe it. I got straight in the pool and knew there was no need for morphine, as I was in perfect control. I replaced the TENS machine with the gas and air, and it was amazing. It helped me to breathe and made me zone out really nicely. My hypnobirthing track was still on at this point, and then my waters went. I told the midwives, and they checked the pool to confirm that they were clear. I told the shortly after I was pushing now, and ditched the gas and air, and firmly demanded that a different track be played, as I was sick of hearing the hypnobirthing lady by this point. I think they call this stage transition. They started to listen into baby more frequently, but without disturbing me. I then felt the baby's head move inside me, which did weird me out, as I hadn't ever heard of this being something that you feel in labour. I felt his whole face move round very low down. My midwives offered reassurance, as did my husband, but I wasn't keen on being touched, and I didn't need anyone to talk to me at this point. I threw up over the side of the pool with all the pressure and maybe the gas and air, but I felt fine. My midwife told me to have a feel down below, as the baby's head was there. That was very surreal. As I pushed, I felt a sting going all the way up. So I did have a couple of contractions where I didn't push at all, as I really didn't want to tear, especially not up the way. My body was doing it all without me anyways. And then, with one almighty contraction, the head and body all came out at once. He was here! No smooth delivery of the head, no major ring of fire. Nope, my boy decided to come out all at once and caught everyone by surprise. I was a little shocked, but the relief was unreal. I cuddled him and looked down to see my new baby. We had a few photos taken, and then I decided to get out of the pool to deliver the placenta. My husband cut the cord, and I had the injection for the placenta. The baby was a little cold. So my husband had him tucked under his t-shirt. The midwives tried some gentle pressure on the cord to help the placenta come, but he was a little shy. It was a little shy. They started to get a little concerned that it wasn't coming, so I decided to get up and go to the loo, and sure enough, out it came with no effort at all. I then had the most satisfying wee I've ever had. I went back to the sofa to be checked over for tearing. I was pretty sure that I'd tore, given the speed that he'd come out, and because the community midwives don't get enough practice in stitching, I'd have to go to hospital for this bit. Somehow I escaped with a small tear that wasn't bleeding and a graze, so no hospital transfer. At this point, I got my baby boy back. This time, I really looked at him. It was all over, and here he was. Perfect, and I was in love. So in love. My heart doubled in size there and then. I couldn't believe it. I'd had the most amazing birth. I felt amazing. And most importantly, my baby boy was here safely in his own home. He was born at 10:27 p.m. after my labour, which started at 6:30 p.m. He was 7 pounds 13 ounces with a head full of hair. After a breastfeed and then a shower for me, I put on some fresh PJs, said goodbye to the midwives. Around 1 a.m, we phoned our families to tell them the good news, and then we all went to bed. Amazing. Even typing this now, I get a lump in my throat thinking about how wonderful that night was and how proud I was of myself taking control of how my baby came into the world and believing that I was capable of the birth I so badly wanted. I can't wait to do it all over again sometime. I truly believe that being in my home and not having to think about going to hospital, my midwife coming to me, my husband being by my side the whole time is what made my birth so easy and so relaxed. And that's the end. So that was Freya's birth at home. So thank you for tuning in. Please do give me a thumbs up or a love or a wow to let me know if you've watched it and if you're enjoying listening to these birth stories. So I'm Emma. This is Emma's Antenatal. You can check out my website at emmasantenatal.com. We have pregnancy yoga classes, hypno for birth with antenatal preparation, and breastfeeding classes. So yeah, tune in again soon for more. Do join the group as well, that's what I keep meaning to say. Yeah, that's all for now. Bye bye.